Hello, welcome to week 6 of Myth Busting Monday. We're flying through this, aren't we? It'll be week 10 before we know it. So last week we talked about how certain dogs are motivated by food or play or affection, and that some breeds take a little bit longer to learn than others. So this one kind of follows on from that one, in that over the last 20 odd years, maybe a bit more, time flies, it's time getting old, I'm sure, there's been a monumental shift in dog training from dominance, which we talked about in week 1, which was very punishment based and punitive and telling the dogs when they were wrong, to what we call positive reinforcement and force-free training, so getting dogs to work things out for themselves, being reinforced for doing good behaviour, trying to ignore or redirect negative or wrong behaviour that we're not so keen on. And this has, I'm quite lucky because I've always been a positive reinforcement trainer. I've never done anything else. I've never used choke collars. I've never used shock collars. I've never used citronella collars. I've never used the spray, the, what's it called in the red can? Corrector spray, see? I've never used it, never needed to. I've always got a more positive solution to all of those things. I used a choke collar when I was a teenager on my golden retriever and she hated it, and it just ripped fur, caused holes in her throat. It was horrible. So I have always been positive reinforcement based, one way or another. But I know a lot of dog trainers who have trained for years and years and years are either a little bit stuck with their old methods or have transitioned well across. However, there's a lingering kind of body of people, slightly promoted by an American guy who whispers to dogs, who still use methods which are dangerous and cause psychological harm to dogs. These include things like the alpha roll, pinning the dog to the floor. It tends to be kind of by their shouldery chest place, and you roll them and pin them to the floor and hold them down. I also know he kicks dogs in this area here underneath their rib cage. He flicks his heel up and kicks them in this kind of soft area here, and he pushes dogs, pushes them and pushes them and pushes them. It's so dangerous. I can't even tell you, can't even explain to you how dangerous these things are. If you want, I will go into why these methods are so dangerous and why they cause such psychological harm. If you want, I'm quite happy to do that. I don't know if it's maybe a little bit too over the top maybe, but let me know if you're interested. I'll do a little video on it. Some people still believe that you can't train stubborn, difficult breeds or animals who are entrenched in a way of learning through positive reinforcement. And that you do have to use hands-on technique, pushing bums down, pinning dogs to the ground, to get them to learn and to get them to obey, I suppose is the word that they would maybe use, or that kind of word. I'm just going to throw this out there. Positive reinforcement was pretty much based on training killer whales. Now, I'm not sure if you've trained many killer whales. I have to say I haven't, but I have seen them on the telly. Unfortunately, years ago I went to SeaWorld. That won't ever happen again. You can't do much hands-on training with a killer whale. They have to want to work with you, and they have to do that through positive reinforcement. They tend to use whistles. It was the basis of the clicker training. It's where Karen Pryor used to work. She used to work on marine animals, I think. And she saw that you can train a killer whale with positive reinforcement, so why can't we train other animals? And other animals includes dogs, and amazingly you can train any animal with positive reinforcement. You don't have to use punitive, forceful methods on them. They will work with positive reinforcement. The other problem that people perceive with positive reinforcement, which is, sorry, I should have said this at the beginning, positive reinforcement is adding something that the dog likes to the environment or to them that makes the behaviour occur more frequently in the future. So the classic example is your dog sits and you give them some food. That's positive reinforcement. Or your dog sits and you invite them on the sofa. That's positive reinforcement. Or your dog sits and you give them a toy and you play. That's positive reinforcement. It's adding something for your dog that they like that makes them want to do the behaviour again in the future. yeah, so the other thing that people worry about with positive reinforcement is that you always have to reinforce with food, and that happens forever. You always have to reinforce with food over and over again for the rest of your dog's life. That's scientifically wrong. There are what we call schedules of reinforcement. So to begin with, when you start teaching a dog a behaviour, we put them on a 100% reinforcement rate. So your dog sits, they get a treat. Your dog sits, they get a treat. Your dog sits, they get a treat. Once they've pretty much got it, we might give them a treat only 90% of the time. So maybe 1 time in 10, we might just give them a bit of a fuss. We're like, yeah, that's really good. Okay, let's do it again. And then you start rewarding. And you throw that 1 in 10 where they don't get food in kind of randomly throughout the training session. And then when they get better, we get down to 80, 70, 60, 50, until eventually you're just randomly reinforcing every so often on kind of whenever you feel like if you've got a treat in your pocket, you might reinforce it or whatever. That's how gambling machines work, okay? It's the same principle, the slot machine ones. For those of you who don't know me, I am not up on my gambling. I don't understand gambling whatsoever, but I do understand the psychology of the slot machine. So gamblers will put their pounds in, see, not really sure what I'm talking about, put their money in over and over and over and over again. They will keep repeating that behaviour because 1 time in whatever, 1 time in 20 or 30 or whatever it's set up to pay out on, they will get their reward and then they will start putting that money back in. So they might spend £30 to get 1 reward, but they will keep repeating that behaviour because it is reinforcing at some point. And it's the same principles with dogs. They keep putting the money in, they keep practicing the behaviour so that at 1 time in whatever, they will get their reward. I think that's the easiest way to explain it. So you don't have to reinforce forever. In fact, it's better not to. You'll get a stronger behaviour at the end of it if you reinforce randomly than if you do it every single time because it becomes too predictable. So if you reward once the dog learns the behaviour and knows the behaviour, once they are doing it quite competently, you can really drop that reward down, and the reward can change. Sometimes it might be food because you just happen to have a biscuit, or for my dog it's the dry end of the cucumber. She does anything for that, so she might get that every so often. It might be that she brings a ball back and sits, and I reinforce that by throwing the ball. So the reinforcer can change. It doesn't always have to be the same, but by doing the reward for your dog on a slightly more random way or random timings, they will work much harder for it. So you don't have to reward every time. So you don't always have to have food with you because that's going to make the behaviour stronger. Because then sometimes you whip out a gravy bone and they're like, "Ooh, I didn't know you had those." And then next time they're like, "Oh, they might have one. I'll do it just in case." And you can go, "Yeah, good," and then move on. So any animal can be trained with positive reinforcement. Hi, I get paid for what I do. As much as I love it and I get a really good feel-good factor, I do need to earn a living at the same time. And my positive reinforcement is, I've got several. So I get the good feeling from working with people. I see behaviour change, so I know that it's effective, and then I get paid. And as long as I get one of those 3 things all the time, I'm going to keep going and keep rewarding and keep being rewarded for the behaviour. So, most people need that extra reinforcement of being paid to go to work. As much as we love it, the payment does help, and your wage at the end of the month makes you go to work the next month. Once you stop getting paid, you're probably going to stop going to work, no matter how much you love it. So just bear that in mind, that you don't always have to use food and you don't have to pay every single time, but you should at least say good. Hope that makes sense. If you've got any questions about positive reinforcement training and force-free, kind of without coercion, then let me know. Ask any questions you want in the comment section below, and I will see you next week. Have a great week, guys. Bye.